As usual with my reflective reviews, I decided not to have a specific script about what I'm going to be recording and reviewing today. Although I did look up a few figures just to give a little more facts to the essence. I also did a bit of research this week for it. So, every now and again, you have a series of games. You can go back and play any particular game in the series, and you'll immediately recognize it as such, even the most recent to the most previous. Admittedly, sometimes this is because of a lack of progress or innovation, but the times I'm referring to is something else entirely. It's when people recognize they have a winning formula on their hand, a game concept that works, and rather than change it, rather than try something new, they choose instead to modify it, to refine it, to smooth it out, and bring each successive title a bit more polish, a bit more smoothness. So one of my favorite examples of this is the Elder Scrolls series, also bleeding a bit into the most recent Fallouts, where any given game can immediately be recognized as an Elder Scroll. Yet each time they have improved on and enhanced the base formula, even with a single jump from one game to another, from Morrowind to Oblivion, for example. The differences are extremely noticeable. Such as it is with Mario Kart. Someone who has never played any of the games except for the most recent version on the Wii could easily pick up the original Mario Kart on the SNES and pick up on it fairly quickly. The the specifics vary, of course, and to do really well, one must adapt. But such is the nature of a slowly evolving series, such as the fact that, the details change, like I just mentioned. Like I said earlier, I did a little research. One of the things I did was I had a friend of mine pick up some of the Mario Karts. And again, she'd never played before. She'd only played the Wii one and I think the DS one. We went back and played Super Mario Kart, the original, on the SNES, and she got onto it. She loved it. She was not doing fantastically, but it's worth noting that in a game she had never played before, she was still scoring second and third in the races. Then we picked up the Game Boy Advance one and played that for a little bit, and then she had to go to bed. But we were going to keep going with the N64 one and so forth and so on. I think my point is made, though. What I wanted to do, though, was look at Mario Kart as a series and compare the differences between the originals, all the individuals, compared to one another. One of the things I did was I went back and replayed all 6 of the previous Mario Karts myself. I shouldn't say all 6, but whatever. So, let's go from the beginning, in order. 1992, Super Mario Kart comes out on the SNES. I remember distinctly seeing the ads for that, reading all the little adverts in Nintendo Power of exactly how it was going to work, and here's the map, and here's the track, and here's exactly how it's going to look, and here's the differences between the carts and all that. And I used to be so psyched about that game, and when I finally got it, I played it into the ground. I loved that game. Mind you, I didn't have anyone to play with. So, admittedly, after a while, my enjoyment went down a little bit. It got to the point where I wasn't as psyched about it as I could have been, and I went on to other games like Secret of Mana, for example. But the SNES version really started the formula. You're driving around a track, you're driving around anyone else. Oh, by the way, there's one crucial thing that Mario Kart has always done, and Super Mario Kart, the original, started this. There is no story at all. There is no justification. There is not even a paragraph in the manual that says this is why you're racing. That's it. You're just racing. You are racing. That's the story. It's less story than, say, Left 4 Dead has. And Left 4 Dead's story involves, here's some zombie, let's shoot them. No justification given whatsoever. Just go and have fun. And that's the whole point of Mario Kart. One of the reasons, at least in my opinion, that Mario Kart does hold its place in the Guinness Book of World Records, for 5 separate records, by the way, is the fact that it's just fun. It is just a game. It's just meant to be played, picked up, and put down at will, and have fun with it. So, SNES one really did start that with a bang, didn't it? Everything I just mentioned was present there, right there at the beginning. You had to have coins to go faster, the power-ups were a little limited, you could bug the game out at times, and the AI was kind of crap, to be honest with you. Then there were a few little details, like the fact that power-ups were things that were limited. There were a set number of power-ups on the map, and because the enemy AIs never could pick up power-ups, the players are the only ones who could. They would just use their own special abilities, like Donkey would leave bananas, and Peach would fling mushrooms, and Yoshi would fling eggs, things like that. So that's the SNES one, right? SNES also introduced the concept of Rainbow Road and Bowser's Castle, both being regulars, and indeed have been in every single Mario Kart since. The next one was Mario Kart 64. 1996 is when that game came out, and I did have that right there in the beginning with an N64. Now, as weird as this is going to sound, I at the same time really liked and really disliked Mario Kart 64. The music was really good. The graphics bothered me. The fact that it was in full 3D was nice, but it wasn't actually full 3D. You were still very limited to the track, which is both good and bad, depending on how you look at it. Most people I know tend to rate the 64 one as one of the best ones. That's probably, and my friend Pax has had a theory on this, that whichever Mario Kart you really got to play with friends is the one you like the most, which would be true in my case, given the one I'll get to in a minute here, which is the one I played the most with everybody. But the point is that it was a good game. It had more options, more tracks. It was a lot larger. The Rainbow Road was a lot harder. Well, it wasn't harder. You know what? It wasn't harder. It was the endurance race. That's right. That was the endurance Rainbow Road. It had tracks on it. And tracks, railings, so you couldn't actually fall off the track. But Mario Kart 64 added the sliding. That was the first time sliding really was a true mechanic, where you could do the slide back, back, back boost thing. That started in Mario Kart 64. Mario Kart 64 also came up with the idea of using jumps as a regular thing, as opposed to just little bumps on the road that you kind of had to avoid or use to get across some mud in the ground, things like that. It was a nice game, though. It was well done, just not one of my favorites. Not much I can say about that. The next game that came out, I actually owned for quite a while there. I have since lost the cartridge, I believe, most unfortunately. It would be Mario Kart Super Circuit on the Game Boy Advance. That would be 2001. Mario Kart Super Circuit took all the innovations of the 64 one and flung them out the window, and instead had basically went back to the SNES. You were still driving around as if this was the SNES game, because the coins were back. They had been absent in Mario Kart 64, and all the power-ups were more likened to the old ones. The tracks were shorter again. Oh, that was another key feature with 64, was the tracks were elongated, so it was 3 laps per track instead of 5, because all the tracks in the original were so small, obviously because of the limitations of the technology. The GBA one went a little bit more back towards that, although there were still usually 3-lap races dependent on it. I don't think that one actually added anything to the series as a whole, at least not that I'm aware of. It was hard to play that one, I'll admit. It's a handheld thing, right? But, obviously I didn't have the availability to play that properly, so I was playing it on a computer screen. And it's just different playing that like that, playing this thing, and it's I can't really comment on it, but it was the first one to have voice acting, really a prominent feature of the game. They actually start talking regularly at all points in the game, and there's the flashiness, the shininess, the really uplifting thing that Mario Kart had started doing since the 64 version was really prevalent in there. Then we have Mario Kart Double Dash. That's on the GameCube, and that was in 2003, a mere 2 years later. That was an awesome game. That added a concept that was beautiful in my opinion. You could have 2 people, in fact you had to have 2 people on the cart at any given point in time. Which people you had on the cart affected which power-ups would you pick up, because only, for example, the Koopas would get the triple shells, only Mario would get the super mushroom, I believe, and only Bowser would get the big fireball thing, etc., etc., etc. And if you played 2 of the secret characters, you could, really get all of the power-ups pretty much equally randomly. And GameCube one is also the first one that really added a lot of unlockables. The 64 version had, the Final Cup and then the Mirror Mode. But GameCube had the Final Cup, and then the next CC, and then the next CC, the Final Cup, and then the Mirror Mode, and everything that I just mentioned again, as well as several carts you could unlock, which was another new thing I'll get to in a moment, and several racers you could unlock. In the GameCube version, you could carts, in the previous versions, an individual racer had his own stats. That's been true since the original. But in the GameCube version, the racers only affect the power-ups, like I just mentioned. It's instead the carts that affect your stats, and any given racer can only race a certain number of carts, right? Small people can only race the small ones, etc., etc. That made perfect sense.